Wargame Generals, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Today I've been upkeeping, is that the word? Doing a bit of housekeeping on probably my favourite army for any wargame, just the background and what got me into wargaming and role-playing, etc. It is my Undead. There it is. I remember in 1989 was when I first started playing war games. That gives away my age, perhaps. I used to love the movie Jason and the Argonauts with these amazing stop frame photography, animated skeletons, and once I saw these skeletons in magazines for role playing and wargaming systems, I just fell for it immediately and knew that is something I would have to do. So there you go. That's really what got me in to all of this. So the Undead have a special place in my heart. So yeah, I'll take you through my army. Thank you for letting me share this small indulgence with you. But so as I say, you play an army and you play your models and they get a bit broken and you lose models here and there and you just have to account for everything. So every so often I'll just get an army out, put it in review as it were, and make sure that all the arms and legs are on and make sure that it's all touched up. Things get damaged, don't they? So yeah, I like to just get it out, and there's a little bit of pride in what you've done. Not that I am any kind of model expert, painting expert or anything like that. I wouldn't profess to be any level of artist at all. So yeah, thanks for coming along and looking at this with me. So I'll go through the army a section at a time. So let's start with the Monstrous characters first. This I got from Reaper, I think, actually, from Spirit Games in Burton-on-Trent. One of my favourite places to go and get models from. This, I think I ordered this as like a Reaper Bones model, but I ended up somehow with this amazing metal model. It's heavy. You could probably just throw this at the enemy army and just defeat them by doing that. But I don't regret paying the extra cash for the metal model in the eventuality, because it's beautiful. It's heavy. It never slides off a hill. I tell you, when you put it on the side of a hill, it just kind of sticks there like a magnet. It's taken being wrapped up, and it's very robust. So no, I really love. It's one of those things that happens to you in life that's not planned, but you don't regret it at all. I don't think I've done it justice in the paint job, though. I've tried to get a kind of nice little effect on the wings. I don't know if you can see that with the different colours going back for different rows of feathers, and that's about it really. So I'd like to brighten up the metal on that. So I'll use that often as a vampire and a Pegasus, or although there's a model available from Mantic now, I'd use it as a Revenant King on a worm with flying, which I might still do because the worm doesn't fly in the Mantic range, so I might still use him as a worm. I don't want to confuse anyone, of course, but he's really good. He's served me well, and I do use him in battles every so often. The next monstrous creature, this was a gift, I think. I got this from, Dastovian. Warlord Dastovian gave me this, so you might have seen on one or two of my previous reports and things. I think he gave me this, actually, if I remember rightly. So he acts as a Lycanus, which is essentially a lycanthrope monster character. So he can be really good at charging into the sides of things and getting lots of hits on them. If he can do that. I don't think he's nimble though, but he's quite manoeuvrable nonetheless because of his small base size. So the last monstrous character I've got is this. How do I describe this? This bone dragon. It is beautiful, I think. It cost me about 20 quid. Was it even 20 quid? I don't know. He's Reaper Bones, he is. He's stunning, I think. Again, my lack of any good painting strategy, tactical skill is made up for somewhat by a beautiful model. I say he's made of kind of this Reaper Bones kind of squidgy squidgy plastic, but you wouldn't know. You see, look, you can actually bend him about. Look, it doesn't even damage the model. So I've literally dropped this guy and he's bounced, and I've been able to pick him up and he's absolutely fine. But I think you'll agree that for the money, he's really impressive. And then I think, if I remember rightly, I made the knight on the back. It's one of the things I've got to do. You'll see, look, I don't think that spear's long enough to use, so I'm going to extend that spear at some point. I think I made him up from a cavalry model top of an armoured knight and the bottom of an elf, I think, a Mantic elf. So yeah. So that was a very cheap but really impressive model. So I use him as a vampire on an undead dragon, and he's really good. I don't use him very often. There's a lot of points for what you get, but I do wheel him out every so often just because he's impressive. You'll notice the huge size of the base there. And there's a rule where you can use a base that's bigger just because the model's huge, but I don't think that's tactically useful. But then I am no tournament player by any means. So on to kind of the frontline combat-y impressive commanders. We've got this Reaper Bones mummy, just these wingy bits on the back. I tend to use, oops Daisy, fall over. It's the wings, you must not land very well. I use that as a mummy pharaoh character, cursed pharaoh I think it's called, with the wings of the honey maze. I do feel a bit cheesy doing that sometimes, but nonetheless he is very effective, and the model is nice. I picked that up really cheap from Spirit Games as well, if I remember rightly, and that is Reaper Bones, yes. Then we've got the Mantic. Look at that, got more of the Faceless. Now it's really interesting here that you can see that Mantic have perfectly recreated my own muscular physique. So where they got those photographs from, I don't know yet, but one day I'll find out. I don't know where they've been spying on me through a window or something, but you see his muscular Adonis-like body there, very much like my own. I don't use Morgoth very often. Again, a lot of points. He's very good, but you still only get to use one spell in a turn. I've seen other people use him really well. I just don't think I'm tactically adept enough to make the best use of him. Also, he doesn't seem to have caught up with new spells like Soul Drain and things like that. It doesn't seem to have those in any of the new upgrades. But there is a new book coming out, I think, this year, a new kind of Clash of Kings 2018, so maybe there's an upgrade for him there. I've not read it yet. Then we've got, is this Iona, is that her name? I think she's a special character. I got her in a Bloodmire Legion. It's actually where I got a lot of these models from. It was a really good deal at the time that Mantic were doing. So this is Lady Iona, I think. Was it Leona? I think maybe Iona. And she is essentially a vampire lady, or lord, however you would want to state that. And I think she has a special ability that allows her to attack other characters more effectively and will make them less effective. So that's really good. Again, I don't use her a lot. Should use her a bit more because she is fun. Her special rule isn't kind of game winning. It's just a lot of fun. So yeah, I should use her a bit more just for the heck of it, I think. Let's move these out of the way so I can see the guys the back a bit better. So now we have what I would call the general auxiliaries of the character. So we've got a standard bearer on foot, obviously very useful for inspiring, though many other characters have it. It's a good cheap way of getting inspiring onto a table. It's really important, especially for the undead, where you're often your enemies rolling nerve checks at the top of the dice level, really, because you often don't have wavering values. You have to knock an undead unit out. So it's really important to have a standard bearer, maybe Banner of the Griffin on there, etc. A mounted standard bearer, got that free with the Bloodmire Legion. It's like a free gift from Mantic, so that was really good. And I like him. I like him. He's not overdone either. I've got a silly helmet on. I actually really like his sword and his just skull-like visage. So on to what I would identify as the engine of the undead army, which are the Lich Kings and the Necromancers. I think they're amazingly important. I think they're more important than Undead get some great combat characters, but I think these are more important, just for me personally. Other armies get great close combat characters, and they're really useful, and they use them really well. But you need Surge really for using a lot of undead characters. You can make undead armies up out of units that don't require Surge. But really, if you're playing a kind of nice balanced army with using as many units as possible, you're going to need Surge to be effective. Some close combat characters, such as Revenants, Kings, Revenant characters, and the Mummy, Pharaoh, Curse Pharaoh, do use Surge, but the Leash Kings and the Necromancers get so many dice of Surge. You can really use some of your larger infantry units, or some sneaky infantry units, even some cavalry units with Surge, and it makes them really, really effective. You can really cover some distance, turn on an enemy that's got behind your lines, use them to counter enemy characters as well by turning about and surging into them. That will surprise them, and it still does. So I use these models for my main wizards. That's a Reaper. That's not Reaper. Is Reaper Bones? I don't know, but they've got this kind of translucent range where that you can see through. I don't know if you can see the plastic on here, but you can see through the plastic. These lovely green effects. You just put some grey on there to make it look more ghostly. Yeah, that looks really kind of wraith-like, I think, and makes it look like an undead wizard to me. This is an old Games Workshop, a very old Games Workshop. I think this was a gift from Warlord Craig, actually, which is very nice. Again, another person you might see on my channel every so often, battling and destroying my dreams of victory. So yeah, that's a really old model. I actually think it might be like a Chaos Skaven model, but I put him in this army just because of the huge size, because yeah, I'm cheesy like that. It's the huge size, so it goes in the undead army. And then this big kind of necromancery wizardy guy is a Reaper Bones model. So there we go, those are the Leash Kings. Then I ended up with 5 extra Wraiths from Mantic. I think it's because you used to have troops of 5 of them, and then they changed the rules, so a troop is now 10. So I think I ended up with 15 Wraiths. So I've got these 5 spare that I can't really use, so I just use them as auxiliary necromancers. Again, 5 probably is too much, to be honest. 5 necromancers, 3 Leash Kings and 5 is that too many? Yeah. Well, I like to swap them out. I'll be in the mood one day for a huge scythe or a big ball and chain, and that's what I'll use. Or this guy here, looking at his skull, which looks really cool, I think. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. I've used 3 or 4 in a battle before, and I've done that. It's played Mary out with an enemy with your increased manoeuvrability. The enemy may then stomp on them with characters, but what can you achieve before that happens with 4 necromancers as well? There you go. So good. So those are my characters. I find them really useful. So those are Mantic ones, Mantic Wraiths. Again, I use them as necromancers very often, and then I use this again, another kind of ghostly guy. He's a Reaper model, and I might use him as a wizard as well. So that's the characters in the main that I use. Gaze, poor souls, into the source of your doom, which is a legion of zombies. Now these are some of the coolest models Mantic have done. They did these on Kickstarter years ago, I think, and they have been a great success in my opinion. I think they look amazing. I am a big fan of these. Just the way, even from above, if you look from above, the way that they stack up. They're really good. They're really good to put on a base in number, and they look like they're crawling over each other to get to you, coming up out the ground. And there's ones that are crawling out of the earth, and there's ones that are just like legs and a spinal column, and they're amazing. I love these models. Are there more detailed zombies out there? Do you know? I don't know. I think possibly you might argue that, but I think Mantic made such a good job of all the poses. I don't know how to describe it, how the models work together. that I don't think I can think. I can't think of better zombies out there. There are ace zombies out there that other companies make, but no, I think Mantic. These are a headline unit for the company, I think, and I love using them. This is a legion of zombies. You've got to have a legion of zombies. Their nerve is through the roof. They're very difficult to shift. I know there are lots of advanced tactics out there nowadays for triple charging such a big unit, but that's fine. Let people triple charge your unit and put themselves in a position where you can capitalise. It's not about the tactics for me, though particularly it's about having a legion of zombies. Is that cool or is it not cool? It is cool. Therefore, the army choice decision is made. So, there's only one thing better than a legion of zombies, and that is my second legion of zombies. There we go. I think there's actually a lot of ghoul models in there as well. In that particular unit, I think you see in that corner there, I've put some ghouls in to supplement that unit and bring it up to legion size. Sometimes, depending on the game, you might want a few more ghoul troops or regiments. You can just swap out some of those, stick them on a smaller base, and use them as ghouls as well. And the ghouls and the zombies have always been kind of interchangeable and gives you more of a diorama look. And again, I think these models are great for dioramas as well. I haven't dioramaed these because I play other games with them as well, like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, where I have a horde of zombies in that. So I like to be able to take them off the base and use them elsewhere as well. Though there are some amazing dioramas people are making with zombies and stuff out there. They're brilliant, artistic, I would say. So, what's better than 2 legions of zombies? It would be my 3rd legion of zombies because zombies. I mean, why else? There is no other reason. And if anyone wanted to critique the use of 3 legions of zombies in a battle, I would quote the modern urban philosopher Stormzy: "Shut up, because you're wrong." 3 legions of zombies are just impressive, even if you lose the battle through doing it. So there we go. On to maybe some smaller infantry units now, but really important in the way the game's played that I've observed. These are ghouls. I've got a regiment and a troop of ghouls there. I think very often I would use 2 or 3 troops of ghouls and split that regiment there up into two sets and just use them to range out in front of your army. They are not shambling, so you can kind of count on where they're going to be in the early game a little bit more, which is quite good. And they're also good screening troops. They have very low nerve. They have low armour, so you know the enemy is going to kind of reach out, touch them with some missile weapons or an early charge, and they're just going to disappear for you conveniently so that you can counter-charge an enemy. I don't know. I don't know if I like this kind of chaffy thing where it's just like I move my guys, you have to move your guys into my guys, and then I move my guys into your guys. Chess is a game, and it's a very valuable game for strategic decisions, but I try and use troops in different ways. So I've often also been able to use ghouls more by luck than judgment as flanking troops. They're quite good at that. They hit quite well compared to many of the other units in an undead army. And I've got the odd sneaky flank attack in with them in time, and they're quite useful for that. So I'll always send about report that other people chaff them. I love these gents, and would always tell them that to their face, that I love and value their presence on the battlefield. So keep on doing well, guys. So on to a smaller unit, a regiment here. But a very important regiment is the Mummies, which are, I think they're amazing in a way. I don't think they come in hordes as such. I think you have to have them in regiments. I try to take at least a troop of them if I'm using the the tactically adept Wings of the Honey Maze equipped Cursed Pharaoh, because at least I'm adhering to some level of background there. Though Mummies are very good. Some people call them kind of game-winning monsters and stuff. Maybe not. I think they're a regiment, so their nerve isn't insurmountable, if you get a lot of missile troops on them that's got piercing, because they have got like I think they've got 5 or 6 for their toughness, for their armour. So they are really hard to hit with normal missile troops, but a few zaps. Zaps? Oh, that's from the past, isn't it? From like lightning bolts and elven bolt throwers and things like that. Anything with piercing, especially equipped missile troops that get piercing through Bane Chant, etc., can really make a mess of these guys. And they regenerate, hey, that's good, but I think they can be taken off quite quickly if you're not careful. So you have to screen them, I think, behind things like lighter cavalry troops, monsters, large blocks of infantry, depending what's in front of you, and get them into the flank, and they do really well then. So I think you have to use them a bit more carefully than I see many people using them, and I admit I can be scared of committing them, but I do love the models. I do love the concept. This is a mixture. I think about half of these are Mantic, and half of these are Reaper Bones. I love the Mantic models. They're really good. I would have 20 of them. I just can't seem to put them together in a way that makes them base up very well together. So I end up they look really kind of not very well regimented on the base. So I've got the Reaper Bones one to put in the middle of the unit so that they look a little bit better. And they also look very different that way. The Reaper Bones ones are kind of thinner, more like like they've been in a museum or something, and the Mantic ones look heavily armed and ready for war, which is good. I like that concept. But I like the fact that the unit looks hodgepodge, and like the mummies have been taken from different areas and stuff like that. So I quite like that. And I think that works well for an undead army anyway. Some of the units may have like dead people in them that have taken from many different cultures and stuff. So that's quite good. But I'll come on to that in a bit. So let's come on to the Wraiths. And I do like these Mantic Wraiths as well. They have these cool weapon options. If this really kind of ace. They look really mighty, I think. They look like they're going to really, really kick your head in. I think balls and chains and scythes everywhere. These wonderful kind of jagged-edged assassin-like swords. I like them. Wraiths are quite important pieces in the game as well. I think they have very high armor. They fly. They're not too bad in attack again. I think they hit on a 4, which is good for undead. I think they have crushing strength 1 as well. So overall, pretty good. They have a terrible nerve, however, and can be knocked off the board quite quickly by artillery that finds them. Again, magical attacks with piercing or assisted missile weaponry, stuff like Bane Chanting or specific magical items that can give archery, etc., rerolls or piercing, etc. There's also a lot. I mean, I notice that you pay a lot of points nowadays for things with toughness 6, as you should. It's a great ability to have. But there's also a lot of stuff out there, a lot of armies I notice with high crushing strength values. So you're paying a lot of points for stuff that someone else pays a lot of points for to kind of negate your points. So I guess that's fair that they're paying those extra points to do that, but you can't rely on having a high armour too much. You have to manoeuvre these guys carefully. Don't shove them out the front of your army like I do see some doing. And again, these guys are great at leaping over an enemy or leaping to an enemy's side, turning in and then getting surged into actions, because these guys are shambling. So they can be used by a sneaky necromancer or a sneaky leash or a sneaky anyone with surge. Again, can get into good position on a flank and then get surged in for a flank attack. That's how raids are used best, I think. They used to be amazing at what I call bumping and jumping. You do the bump and jump where you go to the front of an enemy and then you jump straight over them in the next turn. Now there's a really good, in my opinion, good rules change that happened in the last year or two, where if you take a wound in combat, you can't fly in the next turn. And I think actually that stopped these guys being really overpowered. They're still really good though, and I still think they're very important if you use them correctly, and if you look after them, because I think you have to look after them because they do die pretty quickly, I find. Here's another unit of raids, and here's one of the few projects I've engaged in where I've tried to do a bit of modelling, and I found this amazing model, again in Spirit Games in Burton on Trent, in a box at the back, buried under loads of stuff, and it's like a guy hanging off a tree. Look at that. That's brilliant. So I just made it the centerpiece of this little kind of hill these guys are on, and there are swirling spirits around it, and these are again the translucent range that Reaper bones do. So I think they look amazing. Not through my painting, I just think that the models lend themselves. It looks like a kind of death elemental. Is there such a thing as a death elemental? I don't think there is, but maybe we can make one up. What do you think, generals? Maybe we can. So yes, I love that model. I use those as raids as well. So on to what I would call my skeleton contingent, I suppose. I've got 2 hordes of skeletons. There we go. One horde strictly would be normally armed skeletons, a horde of, and one would be kind of spear-armed skeletons. Now, I don't really choose an army list, the normal skeletons, so they are cheaper, but I like to have the phalanx rule. Though, in the games I'm playing at the moment, I'm finding phalanx not very useful as I'm coming up against people with big creatures, mostly, forces of nature and abyssals and orcs, and everyone seems to have elementals following them about, or other large creatures, and I don't know, phalanx doesn't work against crushing strength, it only works against thunderous charge. So I'm finding them, I still pay the points for them because I still think it's useful when I get charged by cavalry, but I'm finding them less and less useful in the meta, if that's the word to use, in the customs of different people I'm playing, is that phalanx has become less helpful. So I don't know, maybe there should be less crossing strength and more thunderous charge, or there should be more splitting between the two. That would be quite a balance out of units, perhaps. Not that I'm an expert on game construction, etc. But most importantly for me is I usually put skeletons of some sort into an army list because I love skeletons. Because as I mentioned earlier, it was skeletons that got me into role-playing and wargaming in the first place. So I just love to have them. Again, it's an aesthetic decision rather perhaps than a tactical game-winning one. And then just finally on that side, where are they? There they are. I'll use those guys as Revenants. They do have some heavy armour, and they do have a Revenant spirit. You can see I've kind of split them down the middle there. I'll often use them as, I might not always use all of them. I might use just kind of a regiment of Revenants. They're slightly higher armour means that they're a little bit more survivable, and I'll use them to kind of get around a flank. I'll engage an enemy unit in the front with a big horde, but these guys will then go to the flank turn and then be surged in to do damage with their heavy weapon option and give them that little bit of crushing strength, maybe Bane Charm them, and then they actually become quite deadly in a flank. So that's how I might use them, and there are just cheaper alternatives to things like Wraiths and Mummies if you haven't got many points, or you want 2 of these kind of smaller units rather than one really expensive unit to do a bit of extra damage. That's how I might use them. Not that I, again, am a tactical expert or anything. So on to what I would call the fast wing, or the cavalry element of the force. These are Revenant cavalry. I've kind of got a regiment and a troop there. You can take a couple of models out of the bigger regiment and put them into the troop, and strictly you can have 2 regiments there under the rules, which I sometimes do. Not taken a lot in the friends that I've got that play the game. They tend to employ things like Werewolves and Soul Reaver cavalry. because they're greater hitting power and greater extent of the range of their charge. Well, not really the range of their charge, the range that they can go because they're not shambling. So again, they're more reliable than the other forms of cavalry. However, I like these guys. Though they rely on thunderous charge, I think they're good because you can surge them and you can put them into position, you can turn them again and use a necromancer or a leash king, revenant, hero, etc. to put them into combat. So still useful, very cheap, pretty good nerve again because they don't get wavered. Not huge, but pretty darn good for a cavalry unit. So yeah, these are Mantic. Well, I think they're all Mantic in that one there. Oh, I didn't tell you all the skeletons there. All the skeletons, all the zombies are Mantic models as well. So yeah, yeah, they're all Mantic there. And again, as I mentioned briefly earlier, I do like sometimes to mix units up. You get this kind of feeling that these ancient warriors have come from many places, from many different battles. That your leader has taken the army through and picked up reinforcements from the dead of many battles. So in some units I've tried to mix it up a little bit, although I like to try and stay Mantic most of the time, or Reaper, because I love the indie model makers. Here I've gone for half Mantic and half Games Workshop, I think, because the size of the models are different, which gives it kind of that effect of looking like they're from many different battlefields. Both sets of models are great as well, I think. So there we go. So as I say, those are the tactics I've already talked about. Using them is using the surge, and that's their big advantage, I think, and sometimes underrated surge is. But I love that little mechanic. Now here are the bruisers of the whole army. These are the 300 points worth. My goodness, indeed, 300. Awake at night, my necromancer is before putting these guys on the field, and I often do. These are the Soul Reaver cavalry. These are mad vampires on horseback. These are all Mantic ones, and they look absolutely stunning, I think. Well, they would look stunning if someone with talent painted them, but I still think they look pretty good, and I really enjoy using them. They may be a bit of a cheesier choice for me, however, in that I usually give them the good, old, faithful Potion of the Caterpillar, I think it's called, which essentially allows you to ignore most terrain while you're charging. And they get in there, do loads of attacks. They hit on a 3, I think, wound most things on a 4, it's on a 2. And just exert a lot of damage. They are vampires, however, so you can waver these guys. So although they're good, again, if you've got access to piercing missile attacks like artillery, specially equipped archery units, and special magic users, I think you can take these guys down pretty easily. Or surging elementals, etc. You could do pile the damage on, and they do die. So I have to be careful with them still, because they're cavalry. They're going to stick out above everything else. So a few good powerful hits with a cannon or a ballista or a catapult, and they do die. So to rely on Soul Reaver cavalry, I think, is a mistake. So on to a favourite unit of mine, just to use, I guess, is the Werewolves. Now, I like using Werewolves because I think they're good. I think they're very flexible, they're nimble, they've got a really long charge range as well. I have been sneaky before and given them extra inch of movement as well. I think, I can't remember the name of the magical item offhand, but there's a magical item given, actually given a bit more charge range. That's pretty naughty. They do a lot of attacks. They're in a horde here of 6 models. There's a lot of attacks. They've got crushing strength 1, which is decent. It's okay, I guess. So their nimble ability allows them to really get to where they need to exert some good charges in the mid game. I don't try and get them into combat in the first 2 turns, to be honest. I'd rather just position them properly and get them into a flank. But yeah, they're really good. And I think also these are Mantic models as well. Mantic did a really good job of the poses. They look really cinematic, I think, in how they look like they're coming for you. Again, I think something Mantic often does is make a model look like it's coming off the base to come and get you. And I think they achieve that with these guys. I also like them. There's a YouTuber out there called Holy Diver, and he calls his werewolves the werewolves of Battenberg, and I really like that too. So I like to put these guys in as well, in homage to other people who are very entertaining on the internet. So yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention as well. Look, I've got little rats. Or are they giant? I think they're called giant rats in the system. Let's see if we can zoom in on one. Where are they? See where they are. There we are. They're giant rats, and they give you a lot of undead units have what's called life leech, which allows you to, if you have a combat where you cause injuries, you can actually leech a wound back off your unit and get a wound back and essentially heal yourself. And if you pay, I think it's 10 points for one of these, it allows that life leech value to go to 2, and you get 2 wounds back at the end of every turn. That's pretty good. That's a decent casting of a healer turn. Is 2. Most heal spells, I think, you earn your 3 dice, so getting 2 back every turn if you do the wounds to earn it, that's actually a pretty good ability. So I do sometimes take that. So now we move on to our missile contingent. These are my attempts at doing some kind of sculpted bases, etc. There's a little kind of graveyard affair going on there. Is it foreground I got those from? I can't remember. I'll try and find that out, and made these up out of some old scenery and stuff. And essentially 2 regiment bases. You can put both bases together and actually make a horde out of this. And you've got a horde or 2 regiments of undead archers. Throatsaw, you silly general, why? I can hear you asking on the internet there, why on earth, why on Mantica would you have undead archers? Well, my answer is because they're as good as a lot of other people's archers. They shoot as accurately as most human archers. So human kings and men archers, I think, if I remember correctly, still only hit on a 5+, just like these guys do. There you go. These guys have a huge nerve value because you can't waver them. So they're quite hard to break with counter fire. So they'll win a duel against another enemy that's shooting as accurately as they are. So they're actually, as far as archers go, I don't know if I'd build an army around skeleton archers or anything, but I have used regiments of skeleton archers and they've been okay. That's all I can say, really. As I say, I don't know if I'd put my life on it or put £1 million on winning with an army centred around undead archers, but I might give it a go. I think there's also some people have ideas that there's some good archers in the I think like Bound Genius or something from the Empire of Dust, but that's okay. It's good. It's part of the rules to use allies and stuff, and I might try that one day. But for me, I like to keep it in the army list for the moment. So that's what I would do here, and use these archers. So and then finally, I think it's probably the last unit now, are the evil balefire catapults. The little skulls there. Look in there's the ammunition. Look, at that's great. So there, again, why would you use undead missile troops? And again, my answer is because they're as good as anybody else's. These are hit on a 5+, which is fine. They do, is it D6 plus 2 blast damage, which is okay, I guess. I'm not a huge user of artillery in Kings of War. You can't really rely on it, I guess. That's that group there is 300 points on its own. So, and out of that, but hitting on a 5+ in any one turn, I guess you're relying really on about 1 hit per turn, which is then you have to roll a dice randomly for how much damage you do. It's not reliable damage, really, is it? Is it, generals? It's not. But it can go well, and it can be devastating, and it can remove a unit, especially if you pick on things like enemy troops, where one hit can put them in danger of routing in a single turn. I guess they come into their own in that kind of engagement. So yeah, and I love the models as well. So again, I do choose them sometimes, merely because I enjoy using the models. So there we go. That is my Undead host, the Horde of Evil. I think it's got lots of elements. There are a couple of models I'd like to get, merely for completeness. I don't know if I'd use them, but zombie trolls, that'd be quite fun, wouldn't it, to get some zombie trolls. There are whites, I think, as well. There are a couple of new units introduced in the last couple of years, so I might get those as well for completeness. But this is certainly enough for me to be ongoing with. I win a few games, I lose a few games with them, and again, I don't play particularly competitively. However, if you guys have any suggestions as to what I should do next with my army, or any suggestions as to how I should play with an army constituted like this, I would gratefully receive that advice. Always willing to listen to generals better than myself. So yeah, there we go. Thank you for coming along and spending some time with me this evening. And I'm going to put all these in a box now that I've fixed everything, and make them ready for the next game and the next battle report for you guys. So always remember that we're not evil, really. We just want you to be our friend forever.